Hi. Today we're going to be talking about strategizing and forming a campaign for UK and Europe. But first, an introduction to me. My name is Joy, otherwise known as your friendly neighborhood music nerd. And over the last 5 or so years, I've been working in the music industry across a number of different roles, including project management, and as an artist liaison mainly. So currently I'm working as a European project manager at a group of independent record labels called Secretly Group. And within this role, I oversee a few artists such as Faye Webster, Jamila Woods, Muna, Tora Imoa, Krungbin, and a few more. And currently I'm also working with a creative community in London called Imaginary Millions. Imaginary Millions exists mainly to facilitate community and creativity. Originally, we started working as a label and a monthly jam night where we encouraged the concept of no barrier between the audience and the performer. So basically encouraging people to step up and into creativity even though they might not have had the chance before. And most recently, we've launched a community fund where the goal is not only to raise money to support creative ideas, but most importantly, to offer support and resources to all those who are applying. Alongside this, I also host 2 radio shows on Reform Radio in Manchester and Soho Radio in London, and I play the drums. So yeah, if it's music, I'll do it. And prior to this, I worked with O2 Music as an artist liaison. The aim of this project was essentially to keep the UK live music scene thriving and expanding. And so with this, we worked with over 40 artists to create some really quality content. So artists including Kat Burns, Danae Moore, Carmody, Nova Twins, and so many more. But yeah, at the forefront of all of my roles, I always have been intentional in wanting to give artists and companies the tools and the connections that they need in order to have their music seen and heard by the right people. So that can seem even harder in today's music climate when you've got more than 77,000 songs released every single day. And this is why I stress that music should be heard by the right people, not always by the most people. In order to have your music reach a wider audience, you need to have a number of key people in your corner holding the bullhorns. So in this session, we're going to talk about the basics for running your campaign, i.e. roles, timelines, targets. We're going to talk strategy, target markets and tastemakers, and also fan development, but mainly focused on how to do that in the UK and Europe. Building a campaign. So there are a few things that come into building a campaign, a few essential things, but today, as we're looking at the basics, the main things that you have to focus on are timeline, budget, and your team, or the roles of the people in your team. So regardless of the campaign's intent, each campaign should have a timeline. Of course, this is life and things change, so there's room for the timeline to shift, but it's important to line up your timeline in order to ensure that you're hitting all the key milestones. For instance, if you're hoping to put out an EP ahead of a festival season, you've got to obviously pitch for the festival season, and you need to ensure that the apex of your campaign happens around the time those conversations are happening, which in today's market is about 9 to 12 months before the festival. I know it can seem daunting to plan that far ahead when you're looking at campaigns, but you do get used to it. You kind of have to look about 6 to 9 months ahead for most campaigns. So definitely take that into consideration when you're rushing to put out music or any type of content that you've made. It's about getting it out in the right time and the right place rather than rushing to get it out when you've got it ready. Next thing you have to get together is your budget. So before you know how much money you have at your disposal, make sure you budget out the things that you will need in order to do that campaign justice. So that means even if you've got £200 in your account and you need 2,000 in order to put out a music video or something, just make sure that you budget for what it would actually need to be rather than worrying about what you have you can always make up the funds when it comes down to the timing. So once you know how much you need, you can look at where the money will come from, i.e. grants, fundraising, merch, so on and so forth. And then you can also look at what components are the nice to haves and which are the need to haves. So that will help you to bring down your budget as to what you need and what you've got. And then alongside your budget, you're gonna obviously need a superstar team. It can feel really, really daunting to try and put together a team on your own, but the main thing to look at when you're putting together a team is that each member is working towards the same end point. So we might all have different goals and targets within our roles, but we all need to be heading in the same direction. And so with that, you should always have a project manager who will oversee the campaign, even if in some cases that is going to end up being you, which does happen from time to time. Just make sure that the project manager is keeping everyone on the same track and keeping everyone focused on the destination. And so as well as having a project manager on your team, there are a number of different roles that you need to try and engage in order to basically round out the rest of the team. So for some artists, it might be important for you to get a manager on board. I would say so if you feel like you're at the point in your career when you've got music, you've got everything prepared, and you just need someone to distill that in a way that's palatable and marketable to other people. I'd say management is really important to have, but it's not necessarily a need to have. Alongside that, I would say it would be great to have an agent on board, a booking agent. This can come a little bit later in the steps if you're focusing on making the music, producing it, getting that done. It would be great to just bring on a booking agent once you've got that music and you're ready to bring that to a live crowd. And alongside that, it would be great to have a publicist or a radio plugger, someone who can get your music out to the right outlets and the right people, which we're going to be talking about later on with tastemakers and target markets. But essentially, you've got to create a team that works for what you're trying to have happen. So you won't necessarily need all of these people in your team, but it's important to think about the ones and the roles that are going to contribute to the goal that you have at the end. And so sometimes, it can be tempting to go in search of labels or distribution companies or anything like that in order to just give you the money to do what you want, which is great, but a good label shouldn't just be there to give you money. They should be there to be a part of the campaign as well. And so sometimes it's best to not go with the one that is flashing the most cash. You should always have the goals and the target of the campaign at the forefront of your mind. So even if there's money involved, if they're not what's going to bring you to the destination in the end, then they're not right for you and they're not right for your team. So just make sure you stay intentional the whole way through. Strategizing. And so once you've fleshed out the bones for your campaign, it's time to start strategizing. So that will be the who's, the what's, and the where's. Who are we targeting? What are we showing people? Where do we want this to happen? So on and so forth. And so if I haven't stressed this enough already, the best strategies and the ones that generally end up working begin with a clear goal. So if the goal is to be featured in, let's say, 3 key publications, then the strategy would be laying out which publications you're targeting, what you're sharing with them, and how you're approaching them. Listen to your music and analyze how it's been received to date. If you yourself don't know how your music is being engaged with, or who's talking to you, or who's actually engaging with your content, then how do you expect to know where to put that music? You need to really be tapped into what is happening with your fan base to date, and then you can know how to expand it. So let's say, can you picture this music flowing really easily or flowing really nicely in a Spotify playlist? Do most of your fans come to you via online streaming? Well, then make sure that your campaign is not only well-rounded, but with a heavier focus on DSPs, which are digital streaming platforms. So like your Spotify's, SoundCloud's, Apple Music, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this question goes for physical sales as well as live shows. So if most of your fans come from or resonate with your live shows or your physical merch maybe, then skew your campaign slightly in that direction in order to service those fans and to bring on new fans via that route. One of the easiest and most effective ways to build fans is to collaborate with other like-minded artists that have fan bases in key target markets. So this doesn't necessarily have to mean collaboration in the truest form of the sense. It can mean, cross-pollinating with others within your scene. So this can be from jamming or supporting each other on tours, creating shared content for your various social media platforms, or even when you're visiting these spaces, connecting with these people just to network. Don't be afraid to ask questions and to also share information. We're all in the same boat. We're all trying to make it work for each other. So when you are connecting with these different artists in your spaces, just keep that in the front of your mind. Tastemakers and target markets. So, target markets, obviously, we're talking today mainly looking at UK and Europe. And as for that, UK and Europe largely splits into the following markets. So obviously the UK, Germany, France, Benelux, which basically means Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. And then beyond that, we have spaces like Italy, Spain, Poland, and so on. And so most markets will react against one another. So if you're doing well in one market, you might start to see some traction or pick up in another market. This is why you'll see that a lot of artists will often seek to break out in the UK first, as it's the biggest market of the ones just mentioned. And that's in the hopes that the surrounding markets may then follow suit. And so with that said, I guess you've got to know what tastemakers to target within these spaces. And so one of the key ways for bands and artists, specifically with a live following, you'll normally seek out tastemaker festivals. So this can be anything like Reeperbahn, which is in Germany, Great Escape in London, or in Brighton in the UK. You have Bilam in Oslo, Focus Wales, Way Out West, and so on and so forth. And so often people will try and get conversations in here so that they can appear at these festivals. And there will always be showcases here as well. So definitely target those. Not only will there be a plethora of new fans and music lovers here waiting to be engaged, but there will also be several tastemakers and music industry folks who will carry your name forward beyond that date. And alongside that, you have your key tastemaker publications or outlets. So in the UK, you've got Loud and Quiet, Line of Best Fit, So Young, Enemy, which is also in Australia, if you're looking to go there, DIY, Dork, Crack, Clash. These are all places that you can land features quite early on, and most of them have introducing, rising, or breaking features, which can be really good ways to let your fans not only hear your music, but find out more about you as an artist as well. Those are mainly more indie-based publications, but if you've got a more pop or mainstream-leaning sound, or if you've got a really strong image, you can lean more into your more fashion and lifestyle publications, engaging with places like Dazed, Notion, Beat, Wonderland, Galdem, Guap, and so on. There's still a dedicated music section for all of these features, and most of them run introductory pieces as well. So there will definitely be enough space to showcase what you've got going on there too. So as I've said, some of these spaces will be more genre specific. You should always look towards the ones that fit the best with your sound. You've got to think about who's reading these magazines and who you want your music to reach. So again, research is king. Now, when reaching out to tastemakers, if you're not going via a publicist or a radio plugger, let's say, you've got to think about how you would prefer to discover music. How would you like to be approached with new music? You might not want someone jumping in your Instagram DMs or shouting at you on the street to listen to their mixtape and so on and so forth. And you also might want to steer away from sending overly formal communications like your dear sir and madams. Just be more natural, be yourself. We've got to remember that tastemakers are humans first. So how would you like to communicate with someone if you were just trying to introduce them to your new sound or what you're listening to at the moment? Building a fan base. So, according to the rule of participation inequality, which was created by Jacob Nielsen in 2006, there is a 99-1 rule when it comes to having the public engage with you and your content. Now, this is online specific and it's not tried and true, but it's definitely something to think about when you're thinking about presenting yourself online. So this theory states that the top 1% of your audience are the people that will come to multiple shows on your tour, they'll buy your merch, they'll buy all of your records, you'll probably recognize them in the audience of your shows. And then the next 9% are where most of your general fan base are gonna lie. So they'll have your songs on playlists, they'll probably be the music nerds in their friendship groups, they'll probably own some of your merch, but may not attend all of your shows or multiple shows in one tour run. And then next up, you have the final 90%. That's a lot of people, but Jacob refers to these people as the lurkers. So these are the fans that might have discovered your music quite passively through playlists or, Shazamming it at a coffee shop and so on and so forth. They don't actively seek out your music all the time, but will later become the catalyst for your widespread engagement. In thinking about this, it's key to service that top 1 to 10% first and foremost. Your fan base should begin at your doorstep. So these are the people you can reach in your vicinity, the fans that will resonate most with your image and your story. Always think about servicing them first. Before you think about venturing overseas, always think about whether you've built a strong base and community in your home territory. When looking to build your overseas fan base, make sure you do your research. Think about what magazines, outlets, and festivals are showcasing music that's similar to yours. What artists or communities can you connect with in your target markets? Whilst you're building these fans, don't forget to bring along the fans that you've built along the way. So how can they follow your journey? What did they like that might also translate well elsewhere? It can seem daunting at first, but preparing and doing your research should always land you with a strong foundation. As they say, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So, let's recap. First, make sure you set achievable and tangible goals. There's no use in building a route if you don't have any idea what the destination is. Secondly, success starts at home. Really home in on building a core and stable fan base right on your doorstep. Worldwide fame should always come last. Third, do your research. As important as the what is, even more so is the who. Who is going to hear this music? Who is going to take my music further afield? Always think about that. Next, tastemakers are people first. When you're reaching out to tastemakers, always think about how you would like to encounter a new piece of music. What would make you remember you? And finally, there's power in numbers. Don't shy away from collaboration, be it connecting with others on a networking basis, making content together, supporting each other on tour. Always remember that is one of the most easy and effective ways in order to build your fan base. Thank you for sitting with me today. I hope you've managed to learn a little bit about how to build your campaign for the UK and Europe specifically. With that said, my name is Joy, your friendly neighborhood music nerd. Feel free to check me out anywhere online. Soho Radio, Reform Radio, and yeah, thank you for attending my Music BC Jumpstart Foundations Masterclass.